So when we talk about social, everyone talks about how companies treat humans, its own people or people in the value chain. But governance has a very different side. The world of governance is like board members arguing, auditors panicking, policies deciding the company's destiny, and where one mistake can wipe out billions of dollars. Yup, that's the spicy world of governance in ESG. So, if social is about treating people well, governance is about treating the company well with ethical, legal, logical practices and without turning your company's operations in a crime documentary. So, in simple ESG terms, governance is how a company is run, how they take decisions, how transparent the company is in taking its decisions, and how accountable the company is towards its decisions. Because if the operating system is corrupt, the entire system can just collapse. And this way, the employees can suffer, the customers can get angry, investors can run away, and if the governance is not performing well, your company can be the next crime documentary on YouTube. Now, governance answers three simple questions, but these are the most powerful ones. Like, who has the power in the company? So this can be anyone like board members, committee members, executives, basically all the adults in the room. The next one is how the power is used. Is it used ethically, transparently, or are there any shady shortcuts? And the last one is who is accountable if anything goes wrong. So do you have internal control mechanisms, audit, whistleblower protection, and all of these make sure that someone is responsible for something or the other. Now, just like social governance also has a lot of buckets, and the first bucket is corporate governance basics. Now, this includes everything related to how a company is controlled, how decisions are made, and who gets to say that no, that idea is really terrible. So, let's break down these terms. Now, the first one is board of directors. Now, the top management or the top governing body of the company are the board of directors. Now, if CEO is the principal of the company, board of directors are like the senior professors in the company who take all of the decisions next to the principal. The board doesn't really run the daily operations, but they take all of the most important decisions. They approve strategy, review performance, and keep the CEO on track. Because ultimately, this supervision provides the company from getting into any disaster. The next is board independence. And this simply means that do we have any board members who are not friends or relatives or ex-bosses or golf buddies of top management? Because independent directors bring a neutral, unbiased perspective to the company. Because these people should be the ones who can say comfortably that no, this is not the right decision for the company without having the fear of losing their job or getting in trouble with any kind of relationship that they have with the management. The next one is board diversity. And board diversity is again similar to diversity of employees, wherein your board members should have different backgrounds. So they should come from different educational background, different type of work experience. Your board should have women representatives, and there should be board members who come from different global expertise and experience. Because a diverse board helps you take better decisions. The next one is CEO to worker pay ratio. Now, this literally means what is the ratio between the CEO's salary and the average salary of all the employees. So, for example, if you take the average salary of all your employees from freshers to senior level employees, and it comes down to 10 lakh rupees per annum, and then you take the salary of your CEO, which is 10 crore rupees per annum. So here the ratio is literally 1:100. And CEO to worker pay ratio helps you in understanding if the profit or the wealth is distributed fairly within the organization, or if the CEO is getting the largest chunk while the average employee is hardly getting any peanuts. Now let's move to bucket number 2, which is ethics and compliance. Now, ethics and compliance is the most important or the juiciest part of governance related aspects, because hey, ethics and governance can literally stop your company from becoming the next crime series on Netflix. The next one is code of conduct, and code of conduct is like a rule book to make the company behave in a good way, like a good person. And these rules could include anything and everything ranging from no harassment, no discrimination, no bribery, no insider trading, being being honest, and being transparent. It's a document that says this is who we are and this is how we treat everyone and we behave ourselves. And no, it's not optional. Everyone should be aware of the code of conduct and nobody can make an excuse that, oh, I was not aware of it or I did not read about it. Code of conduct is nowhere close to Instagram terms and conditions which everyone checks but no one reads. The next one is anti-bribery and anti-corruption. And this one is really big. And it means that employees cannot accept bribery and indulge into corruption or take any favors from anyone, including customers, suppliers. And they cannot take favors or gifts, free trips, cash envelopes, or anything like a Diwali hamper or tickets to the next IPL match. And companies take this very seriously because bribery is equal to legal trouble plus reputational disaster. The next one is conflict of interest, and this is exactly where your personal decisions could interfere with your professional decisions. So for example, you give the contract to your cousin's company because you have a personal relation with them, or you hire your best friend to the vacant position in spite of them not having all of the skills required for the job, or you approve anything in the company just because it benefits you and not the company. And that's a conflict. Companies accept employees to declare these things openly without any secrets. The next bucket is of risk and control. And this one is that part of governance which prevents any disaster from happening, because prevention is any time better than cure. So the first one is enterprise risk management, and this one is a holistic system where companies try to identify risks or manage risks in their entire value chain. It covers everything from operational risk, financial risk, legal risk, climate risk, supply chain risk, basically anything that can go wrong. And under ERM, you have things like risk identification, wherein you have mechanism to identify different types of risk. You have risk assessment, wherein you conduct assessment of how likely the risk can happen or how much the impact of the risk could be. And then you have systems like internal controls, which are basically policies to avoid these risks from actually materializing. The next one is business continuity planning, and this literally means that your business should continue to work even after there is any disaster. So the business continuity plan gives you a guideline on how to keep your business functioning or how to rebuild your business in spite of any emergencies ranging from earthquake, fire, cyber attack, supply chain breakdown, or even a pandemic. And then we have disaster recovery, which means how well you recover after a disaster takes place. So if you have backups for cyber attacks, if you have cloud recovery, if you have secondary data centers, or if you have cyber resilience. The next one is transparency and accountability, and this literally means how transparent the company is in providing true information and how honest they are for taking accountability when something goes wrong. So the first one is transparent disclosures, which means companies publicly share information about their environmental impact, social performance, financial results, risks, board decisions, everything. No secrets, no hiding anything, and no I will get back to you later. The next aspect of transparency is stakeholder communication. So how well is the company communicating all of its decisions, outcomes, result to its stakeholders? Is it done through annual reports? Is it done through media alerts? Or is there any other mechanism with which you engage with your stakeholders and communicate everything related to the organization that they are supposed to know? Okay, so now we have broadly covered all the terms related to governance as well. So we know broadly what can be asked related to social and governance in your next interview. But then, hey, there are a lot of new trending terms coming up in the S and G space, which are yet not integrated completely into the system. But you definitely need to know these terms if you want to stay ahead of your peers. So the first one is ethical AI. So this one is really getting huge day by day. Now, as companies are using AI for everything ranging from data analysis, HR work, hiring employees, and even customer services, there is a big question to ask if this AI is ethical, transparent, and fair, and is giving accurate data and is not being biased towards anyone. So for example, you need to make sure that when you're hiring employees basis an AI model, the AI model is not rejecting candidates from a particular gender or from a particular educational background or from a particular nationality, ethnicity, race, etc. And connected to ethical AI, we have algorithm bias. And let's be honest, like our algorithm on Instagram gets biased towards the things that we want to see and not always towards what the truth is. The algorithm in your organization can also be biased depending on what employees are searching for rather than what the company actually needs to see. The next one is digital ethics, and this covers everything related to how companies use digital tools responsibly. So if you have customer data, AI, facial recognition, machine learning, workplace monitoring, all of these things need to be used in an ethical manner and the data should not be leaked anywhere. The next one is my favorite term, which is psychological safety. This means that people must feel comfortable working in the company. They must be comfortable asking questions, speaking up, disagreeing without fear. So basically, if you tell your boss that, boss, this is not a good idea, you shouldn't get fired or you shouldn't be under the fear that you might get fired. The next one is just transition, and this is about how a company transitions from one technology to others. So for example, how well the company is transitioning from fossil fuel based energy to renewable energy without causing any environmental or social damage. The next one is social license to operate, which literally means that the society is giving the company an informal permission to operate. So for example, if a mining company respects the local community in the area, is following all of the laws and is not causing any damage to the environment, then the local community out there would not have any problem with the company operating there, and they would not have any protests or any complaints regarding the company, and they would provide the company a social license to operate. The next one I think is very interesting for all the Gen Zs to remember, which is wage theft. And wage theft can literally mean things like unpaid overtime work, not paying minimum wages, cutting salaries unfairly, or delaying payments. So if you're facing any of this, you know that this is wage theft. So these are all the social and governance terms for today. I hope you found the video useful and have taken down notes of all of these terms, and I do hope that you visit these terms again and again to brush them up and have a good command over them before your next ESG or sustainability job interview. So till we come back with another video, stay impactful, stay Gen sustainable. Do let me know in the comments below what other topics would you like me to cover. Until we meet again, bye bye.